Okay, so you know that feeling, right? Like you finish an amazing self-help book and you're like, yes, I'm ready to conquer the world. This is it. This is my moment. And then, like, life happens.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly you're back to, like, square one, wondering where all that motivation went.
It's so true, though. It's like that initial burst of excitement. It's kind of like a sugar rush, isn't it?
Totally. So how do we bottle that energy, that feeling, and make it last? That's what I'm so curious about with this deep dive into Jen Sincero's You Were a Badass Every Day.
Well, that's what Sincere is trying to help us figure out, right? Like, what if every day could feel like that aha moment? What if we could actually build a life that feels that good consistently?
Okay, I'm already in. Sign me up. So she talks about this spiritual gym routine. Honestly, when I first heard that, I was like, wait, what?
Haha. I think we've all been there with some of these self-help terms, but it's actually a pretty great analogy. Think about it this way. Your motivation, your belief in yourself, those are muscles too.
Okay.
And just like any muscle, you've got to work it out consistently, right? You wouldn't hit the gym once and expect six-pack abs.
Yeah, that's true. Consistency is definitely key when it comes to, well, almost anything we want to improve.
Exactly. And that's the spiritual gym. It's about showing up for yourself, doing those inner workouts every day, even when it's not glamorous or Instagrammable.
So what are we talking about here? Meditation, affirmations, gratitude lists, all that good stuff.
Exactly. Those practices that might seem simple on the surface, but when you actually commit to them, they can be total game changers.
It's funny how the simplest things can often be the most powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it ties into this bigger idea that Sincero talks about, that we're not just passive bystanders in our own lives, we're actually creating our reality.
It's a total mindset shift, isn't it? Instead of thinking this is just happening to me, it's I'm creating this for better or worse, right?
Which is kind of empowering, but also kind of scary at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. But Sincero's point is that we're all artists creating this masterpiece, our lives, and every thought, feeling, and action is like a brushstroke on the canvas.
Okay, I love that visual.
Yeah.
But what happens when things don't go according to plan, you know? Like we're creating this masterpiece, but then boom, crack in the canvas, life throws those curveballs, or we make mistakes, or things just don't work out the way we envisioned.
Right. And that's where Sincero's analogy of the cracked pot comes in, which I absolutely
I
love.
know. Tell me about that one.
So imagine a cracked pot, right? You might look at it and think, oh, it's flawed, it's broken. But then you see that the cracks have become pathways for these beautiful flowers to grow. The water that drips out actually nourishes something new and unexpected.
Wow, that's beautiful. So it's like those cracks, those imperfections, those setbacks, they're not the end of the story. They can actually be the beginning of something even more beautiful.
Exactly. It's such a good reminder that what we might initially perceive as flaws or failures can actually be opportunities for growth and transformation, just like those cracks in the pot.
Okay, I am all about reframing those so-called failures as opportunities.
Yeah.
But what about fear? That's a big one for a lot of people, myself included. How does Sincero suggest we handle those moments when fear threatens to hold us back from really going after what we want?
Well, Sincero's pretty clear about this one. She says fear is a bully, and the worst thing you can do is let it control you.
Easier said than done, though, right?
For sure. But her point is, fear tends to back down when we face it head on. So instead of letting fear be the reason you don't even try, she's all about taking action, even when it's scary.
I can get behind that. Like, don't let fear be the thing that stops you from living your life. But it's still so hard sometimes, you know? Like, what about those deep down fears that we just can't seem to shake?
Well, I think Sincero would say it's not always about conquering fear completely, but rather changing your relationship with it. It's about recognizing that the fear might always be there to some extent, but we don't have to let it call the shots.
I love that. It's like, okay, fear, I see you there, but I'm still going to do this thing.
Exactly. And the more you do that, the more you flex that courage muscle, the easier it becomes to face those fears head on.
So it's less about living in a constant state of fearlessness and more about building that inner resilience to keep moving forward even when we're scared, which I think is way more realistic and achievable for most of us.
Totally. It's like building those badassery muscles. The more you challenge yourself, the stronger you become.
I am so here for building those badassery muscles. But how do we actually do that? What are some practical things we can start doing today to, as Sincero would say, get our badass on and build those mental muscles?
Well, lucky for us, Sincere's got a whole arsenal, a toolkit, whatever you want to call it, of practical tips and tricks to get us there.
Okay, lay it on me what's in Sincero's badass toolbox.
Well, for starters, she's all about upgrading your self-talk. Those negative thoughts that can spiral in your head.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like they have their own little rent-controlled apartments up there sometimes.
Right. Sincera's like, evict those suckers. She's all about replacing them with empowering affirmations.
Okay, so instead of, ugh, I'm so bad at this, it's, I'm learning and growing every day.
Exactly. It seems so simple, but even that small shift in language can make a huge difference. It's like you're literally rewiring your brain to focus on the positive.
And she backs that up with science, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not just about thinking happy thoughts, there's actual neuroscience behind it.
Totally. Every time you repeat an affirmation, especially if it's something that your brain's not used to hearing, you're creating new neural pathways. You're basically retraining your brain to believe in your own badassery.
So it's like building those badassery muscles, but on a neurological level. I love it. What else?
Well, she's also a big proponent of setting daily intentions. It's like starting your day with a clear purpose.
Oh, yeah, I've dabbled in that.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, sometimes I forget, or I just get caught up in the chaos of the morning.
I hear you. But Sincera would say even taking just a few minutes each morning to set an intention for the day, to decide how you want to show up, what energy you want to bring, can make a world of difference.
It's like setting your internal GPS for the day, right?
Exactly. And speaking of visualizing where you want to go, Sincera is a big fan of that too.
Oh, yes. Visualizing yourself, living your best life, that's got to be in the top 10 of self-help tips, right?
For good reason. When you vividly imagine yourself achieving your goals, your brain starts to believe it's possible. And when your brain believes it, you're way more likely to take action to make it happen.
It's like giving your subconscious mind a sneak peek of the amazing future you're creating, right? Okay, so we've got affirmations, intentions, visualization. What about something totally practical, something we can do right this second to boost our badassery?
Okay, how about this? Drink some water.
Wait, seriously? That's it?
I know. It sounds too simple. But so many of us are chronically dehydrated, and that can really mess with our energy levels, our focus, everything.
Okay, that's totally fair. I know I've had those days where I'm dragging and then I realize I haven't had a single glass of water all day.
Exactly. So drink some water. You'll be amazed at what a difference it makes.
Okay, water bottle check. What else? Oh, I remember this one from the book. Ditching those low vibe phrases we all tend to use.
Ah, yes. Sincero is big on being mindful of our language because our words have so much power, right?
It's like those phrases become self-fulfilling prophecies. Like if
Yeah.
you're constantly saying, I can't or I'm not good enough, you're basically programming your brain to believe it.
Right. So instead of I can't, maybe it's I'm learning or I'm working on it. Small shifts, but powerful.
It's like those low vibe phrases are little energy leaks, and we got to plug those up.
Exactly. And that's where all of these practices come in. It's about being intentional with our thoughts, our words, our actions, because they all contribute to creating our reality.
It's like we have way more control than we realize.
Right. Absolutely. And that can feel empowering, but also kind of overwhelming at times because it's like, wait, I'm responsible for all of this.
Right. No pressure. Right on.
Exactly. Which is why Sincero emphasizes the importance of self-compassion throughout the whole process.
Right.
We're not aiming for perfection here, just progress.
I can get behind that. So what's a good place to start? If someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, I'm ready to get my badass on, but where do I even begin?
Well, Sincero has this awesome exercise in the book that I think is the perfect starting point.
Okay, hit me with it. What's the magic formula?
It's all about taking your most common complaint,
Mm.
that thing you find yourself whining about all the time, and flipping it into its opposite positive affirmation.
So it's like turning those negative thought patterns on their head.
Exactly. For example, let's say your go-to complaint is, I can't afford it. Sincero would challenge you to flip that to, money flows to me easily.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. So instead of focusing on the lack, you're shifting your energy towards what you want to attract.
Exactly. Or if you constantly find yourself saying, I'm so exhausted, try shifting it to, I have boundless energy.
I love it. But what about those times when it feels like there's a disconnect between the affirmation and your current reality? Like, I'm all for manifesting abundance, but what about the pile of bills on my kitchen counter?
That's a great point, and it's something Sincero addresses. It's not about denying your current reality. It's about choosing to focus your energy on the outcome you desire, rather than dwelling on the lack.
So it's not about ignoring the bills. It's about shifting your mindset from a place of scarcity to a place of possibility.
Exactly. It's about trusting that even though you might not have all the answers right now, the universe has your back.
Okay, I can get behind that. But how do we bridge that gap between where we are now and where we want to be? How do we keep that faith, especially when things get tough?
That's where Sincero's advice about staying informed but not overwhelmed comes in. She acknowledges that the world can be a scary, chaotic place, but she cautions against letting the 24/7 news cycle consume you?
Right, it's easy to get sucked into that vortex of negativity.
Exactly. So it's about finding that balance, staying informed, taking action where you can, but not letting the weight of the world crush your spirit.
It's like that oxygen mask analogy.
Yeah.
You got to put on your own oxygen mask first before you can help anyone else.
Exactly. And sometimes the most important act of self-care is just tuning out the noise and listening to your own inner wisdom.
So connecting with that intuition, that inner voice that knows what's up even when our logical minds are freaking out.
Exactly. And that takes practice. Sincero talks about the importance of cultivating a regular mindfulness practice, whether that's through meditation, journaling, spending time in nature, anything that helps you quiet the chatter of the mind and tap into that deeper wisdom.
It's about creating those moments of stillness where we can actually hear our inner guidance,
Mm.
right?
Precisely. And sometimes the most badass thing you can do is just listen to your body and give it what it needs, whether that's a good night's sleep, nourishing food, moving your body, or just taking a break from all the screens.
Yes. It's amazing how easily we forget to do those basic things,
Yeah,
but they make such a difference.
they really do. It's like filling your own cup first so you have something to give.
Okay, I'm all about filling my cup. What else?
Well, here's another one that I think is so important. Celebrate your accomplishments.
Oh my gosh, yes. We are so bad at that, aren't we?
It's true. We're always on to the next goal, the next to-do list item that we forget to pause and acknowledge how far we've come.
It's like we don't want to jinx it by celebrating, like, oh, I better not get too excited because something might go wrong.
Exactly. But Sinceri would say celebrate everything. Big wins, small wins, even just the fact that you showed up for yourself today.
I love that. So how do we actually celebrate in a way that feels good and authentic? Does it have to be like confetti and champagne every time?
Not necessarily. It could be as simple as taking a moment to acknowledge your accomplishment, to really let it sink in. Maybe you treat yourself to something special or share your good news with a friend, whatever feels celebratory to you.
I love it. And while we're on the subject of self-love, let's talk about mistakes.
Hmm.
Because let's face it, we all make them.
Oh, absolutely. We're human. It's part of the deal.
But it's so easy to get caught up in that self-criticism spiral. I messed up. I'm a failure. I should have known better.
Right. But Sincero reminds us that making mistakes doesn't make you any less worthy or capable. It's all about how you choose to perceive those experiences.
Okay, so instead of beating ourselves up, what's a more badass way to approach those moments when we trip and fall?
Instead of dwelling in regret or shame, view them as opportunities for growth and learning.
Embrace the imperfections. Because let's be real, those so-called flaws are often what make us interesting.
Exactly. It's like that Japanese art of kintsugi where they repair broken pottery with gold. It's the idea that the cracks and imperfections are part of what makes the piece unique and beautiful.
I love that analogy. So less self-flagellation, more kintsugi. What else can we do to cultivate that badass mindset that Sincero talks about?
One of the simplest yet most powerful things she suggests is to simply ask for what you want.
Okay, that sounds easy enough. But we make it so complicated, don't we?
We do. We overthink it, we second guess ourselves, we're afraid of hearing no.
Because rejection sucks.
It does. But Sincero reminds us that asking for what you want, whether it's help, support, opportunities, it's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. It means you're acknowledging your needs and taking ownership of creating a life that you love.
And even if the answer is no, at least you put yourself out there, right?
Exactly. You took a chance, you advocated for yourself, and that in itself is a badass move.
I love that.
Yeah.
And speaking of putting yourself out there, what about those big, scary goals we have? The ones we've been putting off for someday.
Oh, Sincero's got something to say about that, too. She's all about taking action, even when it's scary, even when you don't feel ready.
Easier said than done, though, right? What
Yep.
about all that planning and preparation?
Sincero would say, sure, plan and prepare, but don't let that be a form of procrastination. Sometimes the best way to figure things out is to just start doing them.
It's like that saying, ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to jump in and adjust as you go.
Exactly. And here's another gem from Sincero's treasure chest of wisdom. Surround yourself with people who lift you up, inspire you, and believe in your badassery.
Yes, your tribe, your cheerleading squad, your fellow badasses,
Mm,
because who you surround yourself with matters, right?
big time. And just as important as surrounding yourself with positive influences is learning to distance yourself from those who drain your energy and hold you back.
Ooh, yeah, those energy vampires.
It's about setting healthy boundaries and recognizing that you deserve to be surrounded by people who support your growth and celebrate your light. You teach people how to treat you.
So true. And it's not just about the people in our lives, right? It's also about the information we consume, the media we engage with, even the conversations we have with ourselves. It all contributes to our overall energy and well-being.
Absolutely. Be mindful of what you're allowing into your mental and emotional space. Choose wisely.
So much good stuff to think about. But before we wrap up, I have to ask, how do we keep all of this from feeling like just another to-do list?
Yeah.
Like, okay, affirmations, check. Intentions, check. Visualizations, check. How do we make it fun?
Oh, that's such an important point. Sincera would be the first to say that becoming a badass shouldn't feel like a chore. It's about finding what lights you up, what brings you joy, and incorporating more of that into your life.
So less rigidity, more flow, more fun.
Exactly. Life's too short to take ourselves too seriously.
I love it. So where do we go from here? What's one thing we can all do today, right now, to step into our badassery and create a life that feels more aligned with our dreams?
That's the beauty of it. There's no one right answer. It's about finding what works for you, what resonates with your soul. But I think the most important thing is to just start, take that first step, no matter how small it might seem. Trust your gut, believe in yourself, and go make it happen.
It makes you think about what you'd say to the people you love, right? Like if you only had one day left.
Yeah. It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? All those things we think are so important, all the stuff we worry about.
It's like, would any of that matter if we knew our time was limited?
Right. And I think that's what Sincero is getting at here. It's not about actually dying tomorrow. It's about living every day with that same sense of urgency, that same appreciation for the preciousness of life.
So we stop putting things off for someday.
Exactly. Because someday might never come, right?
It's so easy to get caught in that trap, though. Like, oh, I'll pursue that dream when I have more time, or I'll tell that person how I really feel when I'm feeling braver,
Right. But Sincero's message is, why wait? Why not now?
because we're already badass enough to create the life we want.
Exactly. And we already have everything we need within us to make it happen.
So it's not about getting more. It's about tapping into what we already are.
Yes. It's about unleashing that inner badass and creating a life that feels aligned and authentically us.
I love that.
Yeah.
So to wrap things up, as Sincero would say, what are we waiting for?
Right. No more excuses.
What's one small step you can take today, right now, to step into your badassery and create a life that feels more aligned with your dreams? And it can be a tiny step, right? It doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming thing.
Absolutely. Even the tiniest action can create a ripple effect, right?
It's like that butterfly effect thing.
Exactly. So what's one thing you can do today to honor your badassery, even if it feels a little bit scary?
And remember, we're here cheering you on every step of the way. You are a badass every single day. And that's a wrap on this deep dive into You Are a Badass Every Day. Thanks for joining us.